Hi and welcome. My name is Rabbi Nati Helfgot, and welcome to our Dvar Torah for this week. Parashat Titzaveh is famously known for not having not having Moshe Rabbeinu's name in it. However, there's something else that is very anomalous in the parasha. After Parashat Truma and Parashat Titzaveh, which have long descriptions of the various kelim, the various vessels of the tabernacle in Parashat Truma, and the description of the vestments of the high priest and the priests in Parashat Titzaveh, the Bible seems to conclude the story of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, and those who work in the tabernacle. In fact, the Bible in Perek Chavtet tells us that after the building of the Mishkan is completed, that you do the miluim, you do the consecration of the Mishkan with a detailed ritual, which concludes with the purpose of the tabernacle. V'no'adati l'chasham. God says, and I will appear to you and I will meet with you in that place. So it seems like the story is wrapped up. And yet, right after that, the Bible seems to take us right back, literally, into Parashat Truma, because there is one vessel that was left out, that did not appear in Parashat Truma. The Bible says in chapter 30, at the very end of Parashat Titzaveh, V'asita mizbeach mikdar ktoret atzei shitim tasot. For some reason, the Bible leaves out the description of the building of the altar of incense, the incense altar, made out of gold, which is found in the tabernacle itself, until after the completion not only of Parashat Truma, which describes the vessels of the Mishkan, but also after the entire description of the Kohanim, of their vestments, and the ritual of dedicating the Kohanim. It is very strange, and the rabbis of the Midrash and the commentaries throughout Jewish history were very troubled by this anomaly and this quote-unquote mislocation. One approach which is found amongst some of the commentaries suggests that the reason why the Ketoret, the Mizbeach of incense, the altar of incense, is found here is because it is not necessarily a distinct kli. It's not really there to worship God in the same way that all the other kelim, that all the other vessels are there for. So, for example, as opposed to the altar of animals, where you sacrifice animals, which you are part of the service of God, the altar of incense does not play that role. It doesn't serve God in that way. What it is, according to a number of commentaries, is simply a vessel which allows the ketoret to be offered, and the incense is there to act in a certain sense as a symbol of the fact that God's presence is in the Mishkan. It reminds us of the cloud of glory at Sinai. Ki ba'anan eira'el hakaporet. I will be manifest, the Bible says in Sefer Vayikra in chapter 16, I will be manifest on top of the cloud of glory, just like at Sinai. It is, in a sense, not so much a vessel which we worship God with, but a symbol of God's presence. That's one approach, and therefore it requires its own anomalous presentation. I would like to suggest a different approach. Another approach gets to the heart of Parashat Titzaveh. Parashat Titzaveh, as I mentioned in the beginning, one does not find Moshe's name. And the reason, according to many, one does not find Moshe's name is because this parasha is totally focused on the Kohanim, on the priests. It's focused exclusively on those who are servants of the people and servants of the Lord, who connect between God and the Jewish people in the service of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. The priests. And it's very interesting. If one looks throughout Tanakh, Ketoret, the incense, is the symbol of priesthood. It appears, of course, in the story of Korach, for example. When Korach and his band of men challenge the hegemony of Moshe and Aharon, and they say that they too want to serve as Kohanim. The test, the litmus test that Moses proposes is to take pans of Ketoret, the pans of incense. In the story of Nadav and Avihu, the story in Parshat Shmini, when the Bible describes that first day of the consecration of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, what did they take? They took Eish Zara, a foreign fire. They wanted to cross the boundaries and show that they had access to the inner sanctum to serve God and worship God on behalf of the people. And so they took Ketoret, they took incense. The Bible tells us about Uzziah, the great king Uzziah. It tells us in the book of Chronicles that when it got to his head, when he was very successful, it says that he decided he didn't want to just be king, but he also wanted to be high priest. And he goes into the Mikdash and he brings Ketoret. And the Kohanim say, Lo lecha Uzziyahu, ki la Kohanim mishartei Hashem. It's not for you, Uzziyahu. It's for those who serve God. The Ketoret represents that unique aspect of service to God that's represented by the Kohanim. Why is the Ketoret that which represents the bond, that servitude? And I would suggest one idea, but maybe there's other ideas. One idea is the Ketoret, according to many, the Midrash suggests, the Ketoret was made up of many different elements. Some which smelled beautifully and some which smelled not so beautifully. Not so beautiful. And the Midrash says that this represents the fact of the Jewish people, the different parts of the Jewish people. Stronger in one area, weaker in other areas. And the Ketoret represents the Jewish people, but as we said at the beginning, it also represents the cloud of glory of God. In effect, the Ketoret is that which binds God and man. The Ketoret represents both representative of God and representative of man, and that's the Kohen. The Kohen, the priest, is supposed to be the Shluchei Didan, our agent and God's agent. And that's what the Kohen is supposed to ultimately serve. He's both a mouthpiece for God to the people and a mouthpiece of the people to God. He's supposed to be an agent, bringing together heaven and earth, bringing together the celestial and terrestrial, bringing together Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, the Aviyam Shabbat Shamayim, and their Father in heaven. Shabbat Shalom.